Okay, here's the thing. If you're at some sort of social event, cocktail party, whatever, and someone you don't know comes up to you, what's the first thing they ask?
Probably, what's your job?
Exactly. And I hate that.
Me too. Like, also, if you think about it, isn't it sad that we reduce who someone is into the title of their job and then we also judge them based on that?
Which we should not do. Our work does not define us. This isn't a podcast with all the answers.
It's a conversation about figuring things out as you go.
From two very different generations.
With Michelle R. Williams
and Nick Hurst.
Welcome to Life Happens.
Here we are again. Been a busy week. I've been busy actually social mediaing. Is that a word? I think I might have just made that up. But
yeah, clearly, but we get it.
So I told you that I'd been to Luxembourg on a spa break recently, but when I travel, I tend to write reviews and they get published on Google Maps and TripAdvisor and my own website. So I've written reviews of Vianden, the pretty little town that we went to, and Vianden Castle, it's in Luxembourg, and then also a restaurant that we went to in Vianden. And then we went to the town of Clairvaux, some 20 kilometers north of Vianden in Luxembourg. And so I wrote a little bit about the town, and then a review of the hotel that was quite detailed. Oh, and that goes on booking.com as well. And then also a couple of the restaurants in Clairvaux. So I've been really busy, and you'll know this better than most. You're doing all this social mediaing. I like that word. I'm going to stay with that. I've turned media into a verb.
You're just ruining your own language now. And you always get mad at me when I'm ruining your own language. And now you are doing that.
No.
It's given brain is not braining, and that's where you get it from. So you're welcome. Now you are doing the same thing.
It's the joy of the English language. It's endlessly flexible. That's why everybody speaks it around the world, because they can bend it to their will. You can break the rules because they are there to be bent or broken. So anyway, but going back to my social mediaing, I was just going to say that you would know better than most that it is incredibly time consuming. And in fact, I might, before, because I'm going to ask you about your social media. No,
don't even.
It's a tale of woe. But I might actually post my the link to this article I wrote about Luxembourg in our description. And then people can tell me what they think.
It is the same website that the Aussie story is on, right? From
no,
a couple
actually,
of episodes
because I have two websites.
Is it not? Yeah, I know.
The Aussie story is on the website that is attached to my book, that is there to mark my book, The Shape of Rain, shortly to be changed, because with another book coming out, it's redundant to have the website named after just one book. So it's going to become nickHurstauthor.com. So that's where the Aussie story is. All my reviews and stuff are on my blog site type website, which is a kind of lifestyle and review website called Undercover of the Right. But that's another story.
Yeah,
but how's your social media going?
Don't even. Oh my goodness. I am dying. I'm Gen Z. We live with social media. And I feel sometimes like I just want to move and like live in a fucking cave and just like look at a fire all day. Because oh my gosh, it makes me sound like a boomer, which I don't like. That's your job to do.
I am a boomer. Just thought I had to think for a second there. I thought you'd invented another new word of a way how to describe a way of feeling. How are you feeling? Oh, I'm feeling a bit Gen Z. But then I realized you were saying Gen Z, as in Generation Z, as we would say it in English.
Yeah. You know what? Okay, you just said like 2 minutes ago how flexible English language is. So shut up now.
No, it is. It's fine. If you want to say Z for what is actually Z, that's fine. I quite like it, and I like the idea of feeling Gen Z. I want to feel Gen Z.
No, you don't. You don't. Okay, you don't.
Okay.
Because oh my gosh. So anyway, I was trying to sort of put together our social media, mainly our Instagram again this week and the week before and the week before, because while we were sort of rethinking, the concept of this podcast in January, I just stopped posting because it was so overwhelming and I was doing it wrong and it, wasn't working. I was like, no, I really have to sit down and just figure it out how to do this effectively. So I stopped and now I'm trying to get back into it. And it's just, you think, and that's what I thought. It's just like so simple. You're like, oh my gosh, it's not a big deal. You just post on Instagram, you post reels and whatever. And no, that's not like that. There's so much work in it and so many hours of just like coming up with like what to post, when to post it, editing it, blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, oh, really hate it. But, obviously it's something that sort of needs to be done and just a part of it. So now I'm trying to find the most efficient way to do it. But, with coming back to that, I sort of also wanted to come back to my writer's social media because I started mainly TikTok actually in this case. When I started writing my first book, so year and a half ago, something like that, I think. I don't know, something like that. And I was having so much fun with it. Because on TikTok, the community of writers and authors is just amazing. And I really had some great people there. And it was just a really nice community. And, I was making silly little videos about my book. And I just really loved it. I had people, texting me, telling me how much they already love my book that doesn't even properly exist yet, which made me feel a bit guilty. But, it was also very flattering. So anyways, I really enjoyed that. But then I think it was after I moved to America, I just didn't have time to, keep posting and making videos and so on and so on. So I also stopped doing that. Not like I stopped writing, but I just stopped doing social media. And now I wanted to come back to it. And I prepared it, everything. And like I was so excited about it and so on and so on. And the moment I posted my comeback video, I got kicked out of my own account. And it's been like 3 days and I'm unable to get the account back. And it's breaking my heart. I cried about it twice and I just don't know what to do. So I'm still trying to figure it out. And I really hope that by the time that this episode comes out, the account will be back and working, and so will be our podcast Instagram. So wish me luck because I'm struggling, but I will manage. I will figure it out.
I hope you do. I completely understand the frustrations. I know that with anything in social media and you're working online and then platforms do weird things and you just don't understand why. Sometimes it just seems completely unreasonable and illogical, and you're, obviously way better at this stuff than I am because
well,
you're
clearly
Gen
I'm
Z.
not.
You're Gen Z. I'm a bit more boomery. I'm booming. My social media is hopefully booming now. But yeah, it is, it can be a lot of work, a lot of hours for nothing. But talking of work, what we were talking about before for our famous theme tune, does our job define us? This is basically the question that we're looking at, the whole work thing. And I know you've got really strong feelings about that.
I was just about to say that. I was like, oh my gosh, I have a very strong opinions here. When I was doing the notes, I was texting you, it was like midnight when I was putting my notes there, and I texted you and I was like, okay, I've done the notes, but like I'm so angry right now. Like I just can't handle that. Like you will just have to lead the episode and edit me out because I really have very strong opinions here. And I don't want to come across as a hater, but unfortunately, yeah, sometimes I am. So it's going to be interesting.
Do you think that might change when one day you have some really powerful job with a dynamic, impressive job title? Do you think that's going to change? Suddenly you
I
are
don't
Michelle
know.
R. Williams, CEO of Google, of TikTok.
No, thank you. I don't know. I get your point. I see your point. I don't know. Like my thing is that, of course, that I would be proud of that. And not just that, like if I end up being full-time author, I will be proud of that. And I will be saying it like, oh yeah, Michelle R. Williams, the author of XYZ. I probably would be doing the same, but I don't want it to define me. I don't want to be just an author, just a CEO, just whatever the title is, because I just feel like we should be so much more than one thing in general. And in this case, we should just be so much more than our job.
Yeah, it's true. I said at the beginning of the show that I painted this picture of social events, cocktail parties, and I mean it's happened to me so many times, especially through work. Really, my time at the BBC and so forth. You're constantly being invited to social events that would happen sort of just after work. I'd be my work was in the centre of London, so I would be going off to some venue or other in London. And you're standing there with a glass in your hand, probably, and in a room full of strangers, and then thinking, "What am I going to do?" And then people come up to you and say, "Hello," and what do you do? And basically, that's a way of saying, "Who are you?" If you just said, "Well, I'm the cleaner," the conversation may not have gone much further.
Yeah.
But you then have to sort of come out with, "Oh, I'm whatever," and I never liked that. I said at the beginning of the program, the beginning of this episode, that I hated it because I don't like being judged, maybe a bit too strong a word, but assessed or something by defined. That's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah.
By my job title. It's
Yeah,
kind
of
of
course. And like it kind of makes sense that you said judge or define, but I feel like people don't do this on purpose, but it's proven that you make the first impression of someone in like first 7 seconds of meeting them or talking to them. So if in this first 7 seconds you say what you do for a job, obviously, it's part of the first impression and people automatically just put you in this box that's very hard to break, which goes with everything when it comes to first impressions. Like they are really hard to break. But if that's part of it, it's even stronger because everyone can imagine what the title is, or everyone has opinion on what they think your job means. And it's actually, I really like that you have this opinion because you had some very interesting and fascinating jobs. So even though you claim you never wanted that to define you, it's just really impressive.
Yeah, but it's not that the job title defines me, because that's not how I see it. It's who I am and what I made of it. In the work that I had in the media, BBC and other media companies as well, so much of it was things that I made happen. We spoke a few weeks ago about that my story about Ozzy Osbourne, if you remember. It's ages ago now that we talked about it, but that was because I came up with the idea of making a series of programs, like a coherent series, telling the story about what we know in music industry and music fans as the West Coast sound, and the West Coast being the West Coast of the United States, California primarily, although also Seattle, which is further north, is a big part of it as well. I haven't forgotten about Nirvana fans. Jimi Hendrix came from there and so forth. So anyway, I was going to make a series of programs about that, but that was my idea, and I took it to the bosses, basically, at BBC, the way it worked in World Service, that every 6 months you would have this round of program pitches, and then there would be slots for new programs and short run programs like mine. So I came up with this idea, sold it to them. They said, yes, you can do that. Go off and stay in California and actually also New York for a month, 6 weeks, whatever. Get on with it. And they just, they give you a budget and you work within that and you make everything happen yourself. You have to get the interviews, get everything sorted out. Nobody's going to do it for you. Nobody's going to hold your hand. So you're kind of making it happen. So just to say, if somebody comes up to me at a cocktail party those days and, what do you do? What's your job? Well, my job title was Senior Producer, Popular Music Unit, BBC World Service. And, that doesn't tell you anything. It just all sounds a bit pompous and stuff. So, that
It
wasn't who
does.
I...
It sounds fancy. But
Yeah.
that's the thing. Like, if you say that,
Fancy.
I think that, I mean, yeah. And I feel like, especially when you talk to someone who's not from, that area of work, I think that even if you just mention BBC, they're like, wow, because everyone knows BBC. Not even in the UK, like everywhere, everyone knows what BBC is. So when you say that, I think that everyone immediately imagines like, ooh, fancy, like, okay, cool. But that's not really my point. And, this will probably be a hot take of mine. Okay. So bear with me. But
Okay.
if I'm not interested in the area you work in, I don't give a fuck. Like, even like I can imagine, I am into like the media world and like blah, blah, blah. I do find that interesting. But if I was someone who was into, I don't know, physics or being an astronaut or whatever, and you started talking about, like interviewing famous people that maybe I don't even know. I mean, like, obviously Ozzy Osbourne is quite famous, but like doesn't mean that everyone knows him or doesn't mean that anyone like cares. And if you started talking about that, I would just be like, okay, cool. I don't really care, And I just feel like people do that so often that you just ask, like, okay, what do you do? Because I don't know, it's some sort of polite question or just making a small talk and stuff like that. And then, usually get caught up in a very, long stories about someone's job. And again, if it's interesting to you personally, that's fine. Like, if I met someone who was an FBI agent or a detective or I don't know, even like a writer or working, the things that you are saying, like I'm really interested in. So then you can have the conversation. That's fine. But if instead of talking about that, you be talking about accounting, I would just be there like, oh my gosh, I just want to die. Like, why did I even ask? And that doesn't mean that it's not interesting. For someone, it might be interesting. For me, it's not. And the thing is that if we get caught up in this conversation, I immediately think you are a boring person because everything I know about you is about work and I find your work just so boring. So I immediately think that you are a boring person. In the meantime, you keep talking about accounting, but you also, I don't know, travel the world. And like you've been in every single country or you have a fucking band or that's the things I want to hear about,
Yeah.
not your accounting job. But that's not usually something that we hear. Like, did it ever happen to you that someone went to you and asked like, "Oh, so what do you do for fun? Like, what are your hobbies? What do you do in your free time?" Instead of asking, "What do you do for work?"
Generally, no. And I'm sort of looking at it from a British perspective of how, English people particularly are a little uptight maybe in our social interreactions, I should say. So, that's why we're known for just talking about the weather because it's forever
Yeah,
changing. So it's, the kind of stereotypical image of a typical Brit is, we just talk about the weather all the time.
or the
And when
job.
we're in public places, like on a train or in some building, public place, you just keep really silent. It's not done really to talk. People don't talk to each other, and you certainly don't talk to strangers. So
Yeah,
it's only when you get to be in a social context and you're thrown together with strangers, and that's when you have kind of license to talk directly to strangers, but then it still has to be kept safe. So you don't go
exactly.
up to somebody and say, "Hi, what do you do for fun?" Because apart from anything else, that could be horribly misconstrued and you might get immediately cancelled.
Okay,
But
that's fair enough, but you got my point, right?
yeah,
I
yeah,
just I
yeah.
just find it sad because, some people are really into their careers, and that's fine. But some people only choose to do some very, I don't want to say easy because no job is easy, but some very dull work just to get the money so they can afford their interesting and exciting life. And if you ask people like that, oh, what do you do for work? You'll be met with a boring answer because that's just it. And you
Yeah.
immediately think like, oh yeah, this person is not ambitious and, they are just so boring. But you don't really ask or care if they are doing it just to afford all of these exciting things they could be telling you about. if you asked or if you cared or if it was more normalized in these situations.
Well, it's not just, I mean, you raise a good point there. It's not just about having money to afford the exciting things. Sometimes it's just about being able to survive, you know. So
Yeah.
what do you do? I collect trolleys at Tesco's from the Tesco's car park. Okay, that conversation is really not going to go very far. Or maybe there's some fantastic anecdotes that go with it, but it's not really that's not the thing that defines the person who does that. You do that because you need
Yeah.
to pay your rent and buy food and stuff. And that
Yeah.
basically is the point. Another thing, you talked about accountants, and it did occur to me that you and me are probably very unlikely to be in a social scene with accountants around, because they probably wouldn't be the kind of people we're hanging out with naturally, organically. But
I
I
don't
always think
know.
about,
I don't really agree with you there.
really?
Because, you can be meeting with like writers or photographers and you don't know what they do for their daily job. That's the thing.
Right,
You
yeah,
know,
I
I
see what
can
you
I can
mean. Yeah.
actually just like, looking at my grandpa who I present as a photographer all the time. It's actually not his job. His whole life it's just been his hobby. And until very recently when he retired, he had a very boring, I don't know, office job or what. I don't even know what he was doing. I know him for 21 years. I'm very close to him. I don't know what he was doing because he never talked about it. Because he was just like,
Uh-huh.
yeah, I mean, I have this job, I do it, I get money, this and that. But then he was exactly the type of person who would talk about what he's actually passionate about. So when
Mm.
he met someone new and they were like, so what do you do for work? He was like, oh yeah, I'm just doing this office job, blah, blah. But anyway, I'm actually a photographer. And he turned it around. But he
Yeah.
does that because he's very like socially skilled person and he can talk to people very well, like very well. And so he's able to do it. And in the meantime, he has so many incredible stories from his photographing career. Like recently, he just randomly told me, oh yeah, I photographed the King of Norway once. It was so cool. I was just standing next to him, chatting to him. I was like, what? And he has stories like that that could never be part of his daily job. And if you just ask about a job, you will never get these stories and these conversations, which is, I don't know, I just find it sad.
Yeah, I see your point. So let me throw a quote at you. Do you go to have a dream job or a job that pays for your dream? Discuss. So does our fulfillment come from our work? Do we feel fulfilled? Is it important that our job gives us that fulfillment, or is our work there just to fund what will fulfill us?
I don't know. I genuinely don't know. And I feel like I'm not really able to give that answer because I feel like for every single person, it's different. And I can see it with people around myself. I'm someone who I just need to do something that I see purpose in. So whatever it is, I want my job to be fulfilling for me on a certain level. Like I want to be a therapist. That would be so fulfilling for me. But that doesn't mean it will be everything I would want to be. Right now I'm writing a book. I'm having a podcast, blah, blah, blah. But then I will study psychology. And if I end up being a therapist full time, I don't want to be just a therapist. I will love it because it's something I want, but I will still be writing. Hopefully I will still be making podcasts. I will just have these other things and I want every single one of them to fulfill me because I don't know. And maybe it's just me, but I don't feel like you can be fulfilled by one thing fully in every single area of your life.
Over the last 10 or so years, and I've spent time teaching, including you as one of my
Lovely
pupils.
times.
Absolutely, obviously. One of the things I used to say to kids, actually, especially, in Czech schools, when you get to the age of 15, you're still in what's called a primary school in Czechia. You have to make a big decision about the school that you're going to go to next. And often this decision is going to have a big impact on your future career, because you may well choose a school that will specialize in skills that you will need in a particular job or career. That's very, very different to how it works in the UK, for example. And you're putting quite a lot of pressure on 15-year-olds to make major decisions that could impact the rest of their life. So when pupils I'm teaching or was teaching get to the stage in what is in the Czech system, the ninth grade, I would be saying to them, talking to them about having to make these choices. And I say,
Mm.
this is a really important thing, what you're going to do for the rest of your life, because, you might think that coming to school for what maximum about 6 hours a day, probably less, is boring and you don't like it. And you have to get up every morning and you go to school and you sit through all these lessons, and there's only the English conversation lesson that's actually any fun. And all the rest is so boring. And then
Right.
you go home and I've got to do the whole thing all over again today. That all comes to an end when you're 18, 19. Think about your working life. You're going to go to work every morning at something like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the morning, through till 5 o'clock, maybe later in the afternoon. It's a long day, and it stretches away for 45 years. It's a long time to be doing something that you don't like, that you find boring.
Exactly.
The one chance, not the one chance, but the biggest chance you've got to improve your odds to make those 45 years fun is to do well at school. And obviously my big thing was, if you learn English as a non-English speaking country, if you're a good English speaker, it's going to just open up a lot of potential doors.
Yeah.
So my point was not that your job is going to define you, but the fact is that you're going to do it. It's like 1/3 of your day for over 40 years. You might as well do something that's going to be fun to do. Not that defines you, but just that it's going to be fun. I mean, my attitude always was, I would rather do something I enjoy than do something simply for the money. It wasn't about the money. The money kind of,
Yeah.
so long as you're doing something, the money's going to fall into place anyway. So if you have the choice, and the choice, you give yourself the choice by the degree, the level of education you have to start with, then you will be able to do something that you at least like. But that's still not going to be the thing that defines you. I still don't
Yeah.
don't
And I
agree with
know,
that.
yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I don't think it's only with work as well, but with school too, because that's basically what happened to me. Because I think I already talked about that in here, that I wanted to go to art school, which my dad didn't want, and so on and so on. And then I ended up going to art high school. And my best friend, she went to this grammar school that my father wanted me to go to. And my school, we had such long hours that we were at school for like 10 hours straight. From 7:50 sometimes to 6 p.m. easily, 4 times a week. It was normal for us because of, you don't just have like 45 minutes of some art class. You have 3 lessons, like 3 hours straight. So, it stretches. But the point is that even though it was exhausting, I never complained because I enjoyed it, and I was always telling my best friend, I was like, if I ended up at that grammar school, 5 hours would kill me. If I'm doing art school, 10 hours is fine. Like, yeah, I'm tired, but I had fun that day and I feel like I did something. It's just not there, sitting there, listening, making notes. You actually create something, and it was fulfilling me. And to this day, I keep repeating that high school was so far the best years of my life and I loved it. So I can imagine how that works, and it's so important. Actually, it kind of scares me as well. Because, when it comes to school, you are still young, you don't really care, not care, but you don't really see the future maybe that clearly, and you still live with your parents, you don't have to worry about money and so on and so on. But when you are on your own, you have to worry about money. I remember my first full-time job, which first of all, I absolutely hated. Like every single minute of every single day, I just hated. Despite that, I was getting my first big money for the first time in my life. First of all, it wasn't worth it. I wasn't even happy about that. And I'm someone who really likes, like having money and buying nice things. And I feel like I am money oriented when it comes to some things. I wasn't happy about that. But at the same time, the salary was so minimal. I can't stress that enough, how minimal that was. That if I still didn't live with my parents who were paying for everything for me, I wouldn't be able to afford just surviving. So I think that's also important. But my point sort of was that you will probably always struggle with money. If you don't win a lottery, or if you weren't born as a nepo baby, you will always struggle with money. And I can imagine, for me personally, I would rather do something I enjoy every day for more hours and less money than doing something I hate for bigger money. But that's just so personal that you just can't, you can never speak for everyone. But I think the point of it is that it's important for everyone to realize where they stand.
Yeah, I agree. Looking at another aspect of the whole job thing, and again, we can go back to our cocktail party scenario where you get some people to say, oh, I don't want to talk about my job, and other people who perhaps want to talk about it way too much. And I've met people like this, and I would normally try to make my excuses and leave, because this is not the kind of thing that impresses me. But some people will go on and on about how busy I am. I'm really busy. I'm too busy actually to talk to you. In fact, I'm a little bit too busy to talk to myself. People can get incredibly pompous about this. And my question is, what's your take on this? I mean, obviously you're at the start of your job journey. I'm approaching the end, sort of.
I wish. Can we just switch places? You look like someone who would want to make all of these career choices all over again. Can we just, I would love to retire. I was born to retire, I'm telling you.
Oh, I remember when through my 20s, I'm going off on a bit of a tangent here, but I always thought, I would never retire. I'll always keep doing something. And here I am. I've finished with the broadcast work, finished with the teaching work now. And I'm podcasting and writing, and I get so much to do in my days that I have to, just like when I was at the BBC and I'd come in on a Monday morning and do a list of all the things that I had to do because I was busy. Not that I wanted to talk about it to people to make me seem important. This is going back to what I was saying. Does busy equal important?
First of all, I kind of want to say that your busy and my busy are so different, even though we are doing the same thing. We might be busy with the same things, but it means different things for us, because anything I am doing right now, and when I say, oh, I'm super busy, this and that, everything I'm doing because I'm trying to establish my future. Even something, quote, stupid, like having a podcast. I'm like, you never know, it can go somewhere. And everything I do, writing a book, I'm doing it to build my future in the way I want it. While with you just keep yourself busy not to be bored, it still can change things for you. If you publish a book, if you have a famous podcast, it still can affect your life like heavily. But if you don't do it, it won't ruin your life. But if I don't do it, it can ruin my life. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but I approach everything I do with the same sort of discipline that I did when I was working for companies. Now I'm doing it for me, but at the same time, I still have that hunger that I had in my 20s to achieve things, that not to validate myself. I'm busy because there's stuff that I want to do, and not because I want to be seen to be important, or that I'm making a virtue out of being busy, just because I've got lots of things that I need to do.
No, I love that. Seriously. And, it's so funny because so many people imagine like, oh, once I stop working, I will just do nothing. When I retire, I'll just do nothing and I'll just sleep in, watch TV. That's how people see it. And to be fair, that's how it usually is. So I really love then seeing people being like, okay, maybe I don't have like everyday full-time job, which is great because now I can focus on all of these things I always wanted to do, which is great. I really love that.
I want to tell a story about about a particular experience of mine. When I talked about my first job, starting September the 18th, 1978, that was my first job in working in the arts. I was working for a puppet theatre company in the east of England, and it was great. But before then, I had had three other jobs after leaving university. Two were driving a van, and one was being the assistant manager of a pub, basically pub, restaurant, all that kind of stuff. But the first of those, it was driving a van for a factory. And there was this big factory in the town where I lived. So in my first week, the guy, that dear old boy called Harold, who was effectively my immediate boss, and he was a lovely guy, and he's showing me around the factory, and it was huge. There's lots of dark corners and strange departments and all sorts of things. In one place, we came across this guy, I can't remember his name. Both these guys, Harold and this other guy, worked in this factory their entire lives. And this other guy said, I'm going to give you a bit of advice, young Nick. Okay. He said, most of the time, you don't have to do much. And there's lots of places you can go off, hide, have a smoke, whatever. He said, what you must do is always have a screwdriver. I don't have a screwdriver, I've got a pen, but always have a screwdriver in your hand. So if you're wandering around, if skiving off, and then you see one of the bosses coming, just walk and hold the screwdriver and look like you're about to go and fix something. So long as you got the screwdriver, you're all right because you look busy. I never forgot that. Great advice. So always kept a screwdriver in my back pocket. Well, in my career, it's always been the pen is mightier than the screwdriver.
Right. So when we are talking and you are nervously clicking with it, it means shut up, I'm busy, and go away. Okay, noted then.
So that was my point about being busy. That it's a facade.
I don't know, being busy, I'm an anxious person and I'm an overachiever. I have very high standards for myself. So when I'm not absolutely exhausted from being busy, I feel like I'm not really worth it. And that's definitely my issue. It's not healthy, and it's something I'm trying to work on because I feel like it's been there like my whole life. Like you just came from school and you just want to lay down and be on your phone. Like, shouldn't you be doing homework? Shouldn't you be studying? And like every time I was not busy, I was given a new task, not just in my family, but like, coming back to my first job, which, I absolutely hated that because I'm the type of person, like, give me list of things I need to do today from 9 to 5. And why, if I manage to do all of these things in first 2 hours, why should I then spend 6 hours acting busy?
I mean, there's a few things that I want to unpack from that, to use a contemporary terminology.
Nice.
I mean, first of all, there's the guilt thing. You touched on that, that from when we're at school, if you spend time just doing nothing or playing computer games and stuff, you're made to feel guilty the whole time. Oh no, you should be doing this. You should be doing that. Go and help with the washing up and, mow the grass or do your homework. So from quite a young age, we're kind of given this kind of guilt motivation. And so that naturally carries over into the work situation. But also there's, I think, a more contemporary and slightly more sinister thing these days in that work is getting harder to find and hold on to. And so there is this, get quite sort of draconian attitude creeping in, sort of almost regressing back to the industrial revolution age where you have got to work hard, otherwise you lose your job. And I know this is more prevalent in the United States, where their work environments are much more strict, if you like, and more stringent, and the legislation protecting employees is less than it is in Europe generally. But because jobs are getting less now and AI is taking over so many jobs, people are desperate to obviously hold on to a job. So they're desperate to constantly be seen to be busy. So not
Mm.
to to show that they've got downtime, but to show that they're indispensable. That's basically what it is. So it becomes slightly more to do with survival rather than showing off how
Mm.
important you are. Although showing off how important you are is a means to survival, a survival technique.
I wanted to go back to basically the very beginning and just circle back to the whole question of if your title should define you as a person. Because, to give sort of some personal experience, because I keep mentioning this terrible job that I had. And, I won't name the company or like what sphere it was in, but I was a receptionist, which even saying it now, I'm embarrassed to say it. And so imagine, it was my first job after high school when I wasn't really sure what I want to do and I needed some time, basically a gap year to figure it out what I want and so on and so on. And I took that job just to have money, just to, not sit at home. And I hate it when it came up in a conversation because I'm someone who is very ambitious, someone who is very creative, and someone who is always planning. And this was really so under my level, to be fair. And I was like, I was fine with it. I chose it for certain reasons, for the money. I was like, I'll only be there for a very short period of time, so it doesn't really matter. But again, every time I met someone, that was what they asked about. And I got this reaction most of the time, like, oh, I mean, you are such a smart girl. You are always, so smart and creative. And now you do this. And it just made me feel like something less. And it was very embarrassing. So I was standing there. I was like, okay, so what do I do? Because you asked. And should I like lie to you or like what the hell am I supposed to do?
Oh,
And then I started to circle it in the way I was like, if someone asked, so what do you do these days? I would be like, oh yeah, I'm planning to move to America and then I'm planning to study this and that. And I'm also like writing a book and this and this. But despite all of these, in my opinion, interesting things and interesting starters for conversation, every single time the person was, yeah, okay. But what do you like do these days, like on daily basis? Why does it matter? I am boring myself talking about it. Why do you ask? If you want to talk about your job, that's cool. Tell me. I might be or I might not be interested in it, but okay. But instead of asking like, oh yeah, so what's your job about, blah, blah, I'm really trying to ask like, so what do you do in your free time? Like what makes you happy these days? Like there was this friend of my grandpa recently that I met after such a long time. And she recently got into photography and she started doing that. She's running social media for that. She's doing these events and so on and so on. And so I asked about that and we were talking about it for ages, even though it's just her hobby. What does she do for work every single day? I have no idea.
often you will find with people who have genuinely busy jobs and jobs that we genuinely respect, they'll be much more self-effacing. They generally won't want to talk about
Yeah.
it that much
Yeah.
because they want to enjoy their lives away from
Exactly.
their work. And we all know that their job is important and horribly busy.
Yeah. But that's what I keep saying, like if loving your job is actually an amazing accomplishment. But sometimes I feel like people are chasing that validation through their job that no one really cares about them. If I just feel like we prefer building things in our work than building something in our personal life. And you often ignore your family and friends because you are busy with your work. And it's just so normalized. But I'm always saying, like, okay, if you died tomorrow, what would happen in all of these circles? Your family would probably miss you. Your friends would probably miss you. But if you didn't talk to them for the past 10 years, they might miss you a bit less. And when you die, what's left after you? Because that project that you keep working on, that you keep yourself busy for, they would give it to your colleague. Like if your wife called in like, oh yeah, he died, they would be like, oh yeah, very sad. Hey, I need you to finish this project because John died. The colleague would finish the project and get all the appreciation for it, and no one would remember you next week. And that's what you do. That's for whom you keep yourself busy, for
Yeah.
someone who will not remember you in a week. Come on.
Harsh but true. But listen, before we go, we've been talking about all these jobs and does it validate you? Does it not? Do you need to be busy? Da, 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 da. But you may be at a stage of life where you're trying to work out, well, actually, what should I do? And it doesn't necessarily mean you're 21 like Michelle, or you could be in your 30s, 40s, even 50s and still thinking, maybe this isn't right, maybe I should try something else. You know how we like our online quizzes here? We found one that
You
actually
found one.
I found one, yeah. And basically you have to look at lots of pictures, and each question is you'd look at pictures of people working and you've got to say the one that you like the most and the one that you like the least. And then this algorithm, I'm guessing, comes up with a description of what your preferred skill zone is, and then some suggestions as to job titles. We have both done this, and the link to this quiz is in the description of this episode. So wherever you're seeing it, go and click on the link. While you're there, by the way, don't forget, drop us a like and subscribe. Costs nothing, takes 2 seconds, and really means a lot to us. So please do that. And then do this test. And just to wrap up very quickly, I did it, clicked on the pictures I liked and the pictures I didn't like. It described me. You get actually quite a long report at the end of it. So I'm
Yeah,
not
I
going
was
to go into all
surprised
that.
by that. It's really good.
It really analyzes you. So just headlines, it said that I was artistic, and the second and third most traits, I suppose, were that I was enterprising and social. The number one suggested job for me was newsreader, which I have been, TV and radio newsreader, and then other things in the media. So it
But
was
it was so
actually,
correct.
it was really accurate. But you've done it as well. I don't know what your results are.
Yeah, and I kind of wanted to open it and I lost it because I got an email and now I don't have it. But I remember my results and I was actually really happy about it. I got artistic as well. The other, I don't really remember. But the career I got, number one, a writer.
There you go.
And I'm just like, oh my gosh, the validation I got from that. I was like, and I was doing that quiz just before I was writing my book yesterday evening. I was just like, open, and I was like, I need to write something. And I was like, oh my gosh, the quiz. And the fact that I got that, I was like, I'm trying, like I'm really trying. I'm working on it. And the second one I got, which at first I was like, what? But then I'm actually happy with it as well, is a music therapist. And when I saw that, I was like, I'm not really a music person. I have no talent for that. I love listening to music, but that's just basically it. So I was like, that's not really accurate. But when I read the description, it was basically the same as a therapist, just with this very specific approach. So I was like, okay, not 100% what I want, but just the fact that I got therapist of any kind as my second answer, I was like, wait, do I actually know what to do with my life? Am I actually on the right path? That never happened to me before. That's cool.
So I would just repeat to you listening, go to the description of this episode and click on the link and do it for yourself. It'll be
it's really
fascinating.
Fun.
And you do get a lot of information back from it.
Yeah.
And then maybe that'll help you in your future career. I certainly hope so. On that note, Michelle, I think we ought to head off into the sunset.
Nice. So see you next week.